And thank you very much for joining us. I am joined by Carol Fleming. She is the president of the Arkansas Education Association. Carol, we appreciate you being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
We have got a lot of territory to cover, and I want to begin with some things that the Governor Hutchinson threw out in his State of the State speech. Let's begin with the fact that he wants to continue raising starting teacher pay by another $2,000 per year over the next 2 years, if I heard him correctly there. Is this something that AEA supports, or do you want to see even more money besides that $2,000 a year?
Well, of course, I'd like to see more money, but this is definitely a start, and we are appreciative of the fact that the governor is looking at the salary for our teachers. But it's really important for us to consider looking at the salaries of our educators. All educators. Teachers are not the only ones that work in our schools. We have support staff. We have classified staff. We have healthcare professionals that are working in our schools, and we need to look at their salaries as well.
He also mentioned in his State of the State speech the fact that, well, I'm sorry, it wasn't in his State of the State speech. He actually mentioned in his press conference later that day on Tuesday that he's going to speed up vaccines to a lot of school personnel. Again, something I would think the AEA would be supportive of. I know you guys have been asking for more protections from the coronavirus for some time.
We have been asking for more protection from the coronavirus, and the fact that educators are going to be able to start receiving the vaccinations January 18th is really good news for us to hear. But the other thing that we really want to have out for educators and for the community is information, transparent information regarding the vaccination and how you can get the vaccination and where you can get the vaccination. Because we are hearing from some individuals that they're being prioritized whether they are in person or if they are teaching virtually. And that should not be the case. If you meet the criteria, you should be able to get that vaccination if you so choose to get that vaccination.
No doubt that will begin moving a little bit more quickly over the next 30 days as people seem to be igniting a little bit more of a fire under that. Let's talk about the latest round of federal coronavirus funding that has come to the state of Arkansas. It's around $500 million, $500 million. What do you think is the best way for that money to be spent? Where would you prioritize?
So the first thing that we have thought about with the money that is coming in, that $500 million, is that prior to December 31st, there was the extended COVID relief for emergency leave. And then there also was the Family First coronavirus relief. And now that those monies have expired, the school districts are not having leave for those individuals who have to be quarantined or who actually contract the virus. And so the first thing that we would like for school districts to do is extend that COVID leave and use those monies that are coming into their districts to provide that leave for educators who have to quarantine due to exposure or actually contracting the virus. The other thing that is important is for school districts to look at using those monies for facility upgrades. They are able to do that, and we know that it's really important to look at your HVAC systems because this virus is an airborne virus, and so it's important for them to look at their air systems, as well as that money can be used for increased staffing. Because with smaller class sizes, you need to have more staff to be able to meet the needs of our students.
So lots of uses for that. All right, another thing in the governor's State of the State speech, he mentioned allocating $30 million for broadband deployment across the state, particularly in rural parts of the state, which would help obviously with virtual learning. Senator Missy Irvin, chair of the Education Committee, tells me after that speech, she'd like to see even more money than $30 million, and I think she will advocate for that. So I guess I'm going to call you on the carpet here, Carol. Are you with the governor or are you with Senator Irvin on this one?
Oh, goodness. Now, don't put me in that position. You know, I'm going to stay on the side of the students. And however we can ensure that our students have what they need, that is what we are going to advocate for, whether that is with the governor or with Senator Ervin. Then I'm going to stay on the side of the students.
Well, look, $30 million or more than $30 million, I think that's a win-win no matter what happens there. Governor also mentioned computer science credits for high school graduation. Is that something that's supported by the Arkansas Education Association?
That is something that we have discussed and that we are looking at supporting.
All right. You got some things you'll get to play a little bit of defense on up at the legislature this year. Likely to be another run for school vouchers, which some would argue takes money away from public schools. Some people say the money should follow the students. I sense that AEA will be against the voucher program as you have been in the past. How serious of a threat do you think this is this time around?
That's really a difficult question to answer as to how serious it's going to be this time. It's always a threat, whether it's in the past or in the future and current. Vouchers, that is public money, and public money should, when you're looking at providing money to the schools, public money should go to public schools. And there needs to be accountability for those public funds. And when you're looking at those vouchers, there's not accountability. And so that's why our stance has been and will always be public funds for public schools.
Testing, another big issue here. There's been a lot of, I guess, arguments that the testing system needs to change because of the coronavirus and what people have been going through. Again, just kind of explain to me the AEA position on this.
So back in August, we asked for a pause on standardized testing and also for the test summative assessment for classroom teachers. And our stance is still the same. We believe that there should be a request to waive standardized testing for our students this year. We know that they were waived back in the spring of 2020. And so if you're looking at doing a comparative analysis of your test scores this year to the test scores last year, you don't have test scores to compare them to. So we would ask for a waiver on those standardized testing, as well as a waiver on the use of the grading system for our schools, the A to F.
And I guess just to play devil's advocate here, so how do you get things back on track in terms of that? You don't have the year over year comparison that you're mentioning there. At some point, we've got to get back to the year over year comparisons. You got to start somewhere.
That is true. And so I believe that if you're going to do an assessment, that's to see how well our students are actually doing in school and not doing a comparison from the previous year. We need to find out where our students are, and we need to find out how we can assist our students. And yes, assessments are the best way for that, but a standardized test is a once in a moment time of how the student is doing. We need to look at the whole student. And I know that there are some states that are doing a full student assessment to see how they are doing as a whole.
All right, last question for you here. What else is on the AEA agenda that you're going to be watching, working, and responding to up at the legislative session?
Goodness, we're going to continue to follow the bills that are being tracked. We know that there are things coming, as I've mentioned, the grading for our schools, and we know that there has been a bill that has been filed by the Vice Chair of the Education Committee, Representative Brian Evans, asking for a moratorium on the grading system for the schools from the A to the F, as well as we are going to continue to follow the teacher salaries, but also push for educator salaries when we are looking at that. And we've got a lot of things that we are going to be tracking.
Well, I don't have to remind everybody that watches out there that more than 50% of the entire state budget goes through to K through 12 education. So it is one of the biggest spending functions of state government, and there's obviously a lot of policy that gets developed around that. Carol Fleming with the Arkansas Education Association, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Roby. And I forgot, we also are going to be following all bills that are related to our higher education, because that too is important.
All right. Good plug there. I know all of those system presidents will appreciate that.
Yes.
All right. Thank you again for your time. We appreciate you.
Thank you.